Welcome to the Mouthwash Talk Show, episode 17. It's been such a long day, I almost forgot where I was. We have such an action-packed show tonight. I swear every episode seems to have a different face on, and this is no difference. So we got a little news over the weekend about Jacob taking a job, and it's actually cutting into this high-paying talk show thing he's doing. So I'm going to go ahead and roll some tape that we recorded, and then I'm going to bring on our first guest. We're going to get right to it because I'm excited to have Gary Varvel on here. He's our official conservation officer tonight. So if you have any questions that you have about conservatism, I think Gary's a very fine example of that. So let's go ahead and I'm going to roll this tape about Jacob, and then we'll come on with Gary. Hi, viewers. I have some good news and some bad news. The bad news is Jacob is taking another position that he's been looking for, and that is the good news. He has looked for this job that it's going to take a little bit of a time and attention, and he just wants to be able to give full attention to the show and not halfway it, because as you know, his answers are generally spot on and take some thought. So, hey, Jacob, go ahead and tell us what your new opportunity is.
Well, basically, to kind of give you guys a little recap, I'm currently a college student. As some of you guys might know, I've been studying marketing. So I finally got myself like a little marketing entry-level position in insurance at State Farm. And so I've just been kind of looking for something part-time right now to just get myself some more practical experience in the door. So I'm getting about maybe 30, 35 hours a week right now. And then I'll also be kind of supplementing it with the other side work that I tend to do and all that. But my schedule's gonna be kind of a little crazy, so I would hate to like not be able to have to break my commitment to the show. You know, like it'd be kind of a week by week thing. Like this Tuesday I might be able to, this other Tuesday maybe not. So, you know, just since I can't be a full commitment, it would be hard to keep everything going. But I will say I've really enjoyed the show. I've learned a lot about some really important issues that I've had to research. I've debated a lot of interesting people, and it really has been a wonderful experience. And John, I gotta thank you so much for inviting me to be on the show. It's been my sincere pleasure, and Lucy and Ed, and everybody else that comes on our show. It's been wonderful, and I've enjoyed every second of it.
So, in other words, you're going with State Farm, so you're going to be the new Jake with State Farm. So, if somebody wants to call you, you could be that guy. So, don't be taking quotes at 3 a.m. because, people might be suspect of that. Well, we have enjoyed having you, Jacob. And for a younger man, you seem to be wise beyond your years. And the fact that you do sing the oldies is another plus of sort of that old soul. But we're sure going to miss you. And I know that I probably could call on you for a guest appearance for the Mouthwash show. And, we'll see if Micah wants to stick around and help us out on your side. I couldn't think of a better person to carry on your torch, so to speak. So, hey, again, we thank you for coming on, and we just have appreciated getting to know you. And I know you won't be a stranger.
Oh, likewise, John. You guys are a wonderful crew to work with, and I wish Mike all the best. In my opinion, he is the best person to be my successor, whether it be for the short term or for the long term. So, Micah, break a leg.
All right. Well, hey, there you have it, folks. You just, pay attention to this show because it changes as much as the weather does in Indiana. All right. Thanks a lot, Jacob, and good luck. And I'm sure we'll see you soon.
Oh, we will, John. Have a good night.
All right. Well, welcome, Gary, to the Mouthwash show. You've been on Do Something Indie, and now I gleamed from that you had some political views that might fit on the Mouthwash show. I have your info there on the bottom of Drawing the Right Way, and give us a little bit about what that book is and a little introduction of himself.
Drawing the Right Way is not a book on how to draw. It's a compilation of my editorial cartoons from the last decade or so. So I'm covering the Obama administration and the beginning of the Trump administration. And if you're a conservative, you got to have this book. And if you have some liberal friends and you want to annoy them, then you ought to send them the book. But you can get the book at GaryVarvel.com and my store page. And and I will sign it to any. You can personalize it. I'll sign every copy.
Wow, that is great. Now, you also have a newsletter, is that correct?
Yeah, I have a newsletter. So I do a couple of times a week. So the free version goes out on Wednesday. So tomorrow will be the free one. And they get just 1 or 2 cartoons a week. But if you pay me, you get it twice a week on Tuesday and Friday. And you'll also get every cartoon I draw, plus videos of the drawing process of how I do it. And then there's always some extras. In fact, I write a couple of times a week. I'm doing a 4-part series right now on brainwashing America. And so the people who only get it on Wednesday are going to miss out. They're going to miss 2 and 4.
Oh, that's how you do it to get to make a living doing this. That's why
you want to see all of it.
It's like it's a hobby. But so how many years have you been drawing the political cartoons?
Well, I was at the Indianapolis Star for 24 years. And 16 years before that, I was with the Indianapolis News, not as the editorial cartoonist, but as a chief artist in the newsroom. And so 40 years in journalism. And but now, I mean, I still draw every week, 4 or 5 times a week. I've got I'm syndicated through Creators Syndicate, and so my cartoons still appear in over 100 newspapers around the country. Interesting thing happened, John, just like a month ago. I lost 14 newspapers in one day. There was a small newspaper chain in Indiana that decided that I was too, as they said, radical. And so they told all of the editors of those newspapers, there's like 14 newspapers in Indiana, to cancel me all at one time. And that was a little painful, and some of those newspapers I had been in for 20 years. And so, but the word came down from on high, so I got canceled.
Well, wow, we're not popular enough to get canceled, so we don't really have to worry about that. But I always say if you're getting canceled, you're doing something right.
So, in this culture, probably.
Well, I'm gonna, I could ask you questions for about an hour like we did last time, but I want to get the panel on here, so we're gonna do the peeps on the streets. And then when it comes back on, it's going to be a scramble for where everybody is. But I'm going to put everybody in position, and then we're going to start getting some questions to you. And then we're going to break in our new guest host tonight, Micah Beckwith. And I know you know him, and he knows you, but I don't know if you've both been in the same room at the same time, or so to speak, the virtual room. So we're going to let me get this peeps on the streets going, which I did today at my lunch hour. It was fun. So I did it in Irvington. So here, let's go ahead and enjoy that. And then we'll see who we got back on the air here in a second. Hi, this is John Schmitz for the Peeps on the Streets. And I'm out here in beautiful Irvington on the east side of Indianapolis. And we have some conservative, liberal, and neither questions today. So let's see what the people have to say about that. Would you consider yourself conservative, liberal, or neither?
Neither.
Neither. Would you say folks over 60 are conservative, liberal, or neither, mostly?
I guess just depends on the area and what you're living in, I guess.
Okay. And would you say folks under 30, would you consider them liberal, conservative, or neither?
I don't know. It's too general of a question, but I guess the younger they are, the more liberal, I guess, it's getting.
Would you consider yourself liberal, conservative, or neither?
Conservative.
Conservative. Would you say that people over 60 are liberal, conservative, or neither?
Conservative.
How about folks under 30?
Liberals.
Sir, would you consider yourself conservative, liberal, or neither?
Neither.
Would you say that people over 60 are conservative, liberal, or neither?
Conservative.
How about folks under 30?
Both.
Both. Okay, so we got a mixed, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, sir, would you consider yourself liberal, conservative, or neither?
Neither.
Would you say folks over 60 are politically conservative, liberal, or neither?
Conservative.
How about folks under 30?
Liberal.
All right, sir, would you consider yourself liberal, conservative, or neither?
I'd say I'm a conservative.
Conservative. Do you think people over 60 are conservative, liberal, or neither?
I'd say that they're mainly conservative.
How about folks under 30?
Definitely liberal.
All right, would you consider yourself liberal, conservative, or neither?
Conservative.
All right. Do you think most people over 60 are conservative, liberal, or neither? People over 60.
Conservative.
How about people under 30, liberal, conservative, or neither?
It's a mixed bag.
Sir, would you consider yourself liberal, conservative, or neither?
When I became a young man, I considered myself liberal, but as of lately, I've become neither. Because based on what's going on currently in our office. So.
Okay, well, that goes well into the next question. So if you're over 60, do you think those folks are more considered conservative, liberal, or neither?
I think people over 60, maybe a little more liberal, I believe.
A little more liberal?
Nowadays, because the way they're coming off with how they're feeling about what's going on.
And so folks under 30, would you think they're more conservative, liberal, or neither?
It's kind of a mix.
Kind of a mix. So,
because the ones I've encountered personally, either they're here, they agree with this, or they agree with this.
Okay.
But they can never be on the same level.
Never in the same level. Yeah, we sort of noticed that. So, hey, thank you, sir. Well, that does it for Peeps on the Streets for this show. Now let's see what Gary Varvel has to say about conservatism. I almost got it right. Look at that. I was one off. I no offense, Gary. I did pick 60 for our age group. Yeah. So to be over or under. So just very interesting doing the Peeps on the Streets. I think I got it done in record time today. It was Irvington was very sort of friendly, but it is. I had a discussion with somebody about profiling. I said I usually can tell if somebody's in a hurry. I didn't mean like profile like you're a terrorist or whatever. I meant like I can tell if somebody's got time to answer the question, and I can tell sometimes if they're in the mood to even talk to anybody. So that's sort of what I meant. But I enjoy doing the questions. It's fun to hear what people are going to say and do. So. Let's go ahead and get to the questions here real quick for the folks here. We're going to start since Mike is new. Nothing fell in the studio. Pay no attention to that loud noise. Since Micah is new, let's let him start with the first question for Gary. And hey, by the way, welcome, Micah. Thanks for filling in at the last minute on this deal.
That's great. Thanks for having me, John. It's always a pleasure coming on Mouthwash. And Gary, I don't know, but if you were like me, but I was kind of surprised that there weren't more liberals that I saw there. It seemed like I would see a couple of the, I don't want to stereotype, but I kind of do. Like I think we all sort of do. And there were a few of those people that came on, and I was say, oh, they're liberal just by their look, right? Totally going to be liberal, and then sure enough, they were either conservative or identified as neither. For being Indianapolis, that kind of surprised me. I don't know what are your thoughts, when it came to that. I
thought the same thing you did, Micah. You can kind of make a judgment when you see somebody, but I was surprised that some of them said that they were neither. I just assumed that they were probably maybe more left, but I thought it was interesting. I think. My personal opinion is that probably people over 60 tend to be a little more conservative generally, and then people under 30 are probably a little more left. And I base that mainly on the school systems seem to be leaning that direction, and they have a big impact. And I think that, I don't want to talk too long here, John, but I think that another factor probably is that the longer we get away from 1963, when the Bible was actually kicked out of schools, couldn't read the Bible in school anymore. Seems like that we have been drifting farther and farther left. And I know that the people in my business in journalism have tended to be every generation. This is what you see when you are in the business for 40 years. The young people coming up much more left than the people who were there when I first came and at 21 years old.
Yeah, that's interesting because Jacob weighed in. So we do these polls on People Over Politics, and I'm interested in the conversation there. I'm supposed to be the engineer too. So the questions were, would you consider yourself liberal, conservative, or neither? We had People Over Politics is 28 conservative, 11 neither, and 1 liberal. Over 60, 13 conservative, 1 liberal, 2, and then this is what's sort of funny because I didn't push the button where it says add your own comment, add your own column. So Bill Levin puts in there, we're tired of this SHIT. And apparently 11 people thought that was good and they voted for it. So pretty much we're tired of it.
Okay.
We're tired of it. And then under is 25 liberal, 1 conservative, and 7 neither. So that's sort of the, I think that is what a lot of people think. So that goes well. You mentioned the Bible in 1963. And one thing before Lucy gets a question to you, that Bible is the most published book over than all of the other books published combined times 5. So there you go. It's just like, so there you go, Lucy. I set you up for a question for Gary.
Actually, Gary, I'm going to try not to fangirl. I have loved your work for many decades and followed you. And when you drew me in the debate, I told all my friends, I finally arrived because Gary drew me. So actually, my question is not political at all. It's really just the fascination of how you came about actually supporting yourself financially with your passion. And didn't that take like a ton of courage? I mean, how did that even happen that you were able to financially support yourself with a passion? And what kind of advice would you give people that are maybe sitting on the fence, getting ready to live a life of mediocrity instead?
Well, I think it's got to be more than passion. If you have ever watched the early episodes of American Idol, you'll see these people who are terrible, and then but they're passionate, and then when they're told that they're not good enough, then they just throw a fit because they believe that they have the passion and they want to do this and it's going to happen. And it takes more than that. I mean, you got to be able to draw. You got to be able to, for editorial cartooning, you got to be able to think. You got to be able to be able to kind of lay out. As I've told young cartoonists who come to me and I would look at their stuff, I would say, you got to figure out where you are politically because, editorial cartoonists specifically, you're either left or right. If you're in the middle, you're going to get hit from both sides. And I think that, I poke fun at the right as well when I think that they're not right enough. but I'm a conservative, and then so I think for me too, as I look back, I can see I'm a Christian, and I can see how God just kind of lined things up for me, opened doors that I didn't even knock on. You could say I had Christ privilege because he just kind of opened the way for me. I'll give you, for instance, my school newspaper at Danville High School had a newspaper, and they had a cartoon contest. I entered it as a freshman, and I won. And so I got on the newspaper staff, so I got to draw cartoons about anything I wanted. My junior year, a lady from the PR department at the Star came out and gave a speech. She saw my cartoons. She said, you have to contact Jerry Barnett, who's the editorial cartoonist at the Indianapolis News. My teacher had me go out and call him right then. He invited me to come down to the newspaper, and then I took my stuff and I saw him, and when I met him, I knew this is it. This is what I got to do for a living. And he told me, and this is where I think you need to have this. Sure, my parents encouraged me in what my interest was, but when you have a professional in the business who tells you you've got it, and he told me, he says, you are better at your age than I was at your age. If you want to do this and you work hard at it, I think it could happen. That's all it took for me. I mean, so I was 17 years old and I thought, wow, this is what I want to do. So I really, at that point, divorced all the alternatives, which weren't very many. I wasn't really gifted for anything else. And so, and it worked out for me. It took a while, and this is a long story. I don't want to bore anybody else with it, but, so I think that for me, and this is where my conservatism also comes from, is my relationship with Jesus Christ. And I think that kind of guides me in that way. And I think that for the time that I was at the Indianapolis Star, I was there because that God put me there. And then when the time was up, then he moved me out.
Right. Aren't you glad He knew the timing since you didn't. But thank you
Yeah,
for sharing
exactly.
that. Not boring at all, man. That is an incredible
Okay.
story. And what I love about your story the most is it's authentic because you're able to bring in your best spiritual life, like your spiritual highest calling, with your professional highest calling, which I think is
Yeah.
really unusual nowadays. And the fact that you're immortalized, man. Your work will be there 100 years from now, 500 years from now, as long as people are able to, and care about the culture that we live in, you'll be right in the thick of it.
Yep. One thing I like
Wow.
about Gary is that he's very approachable. I called him up. We had a meeting. I called him to be on the show. He's on the show twice now. So, he's a glutton for punishment. So, Ed's from South Bend, Gary. Ed, do you even have a newspaper in South Bend? I think
liberals don't read.
Oh my gosh, we're going to don't pick on the liberals. Lucy, I've had a tough day with them. Tough day. So, do you have Gary Varvel in your newspaper, Ed?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I am not a newspaper guy. I read the online edition, so I have to apologize there.
This is going to be a fresh question for you then. Do you have a question for Gary about maybe conservatism, since you're supposed to be our liberal guy on here? So bust his chops a little bit or something. Come on.
Actually, I'm going to go a little bit of the way of Lucy. So, I know it seems odd on this show. My ultimate dream would be a stand-up comedian. I tried it for a while, and like you said, it's one of those things. Just being funny is not good enough. So just being able to draw, and I don't think we have enough today of we want to tell the story of the guy that made it in 5 minutes and not the hard work story of what it takes to actually get there. One of the questions I do have for you, from working with other comedians and knowing a lot of people that actually did make it in the business, I also know like Lalo Alcaraz. I've met him not too long ago. And I know one of the things that we talked about was he's very much into the political, cartoons. And one of the things that we talked about, and it goes back to that survey they did on the street, was with people wanting to pull back from voicing that conservative liberal and come to more the undecided, that he was talking about how difficult it was where newspapers and stuff were kind of pulling back, wanting to get away from that. So how much does that weigh in as well? Or, not necessarily just the left or the right, because I've heard it from people on the left as well. So
So, real quick story about South Bend. I took a trip up there a long time ago when I first got signed with the Creators Syndicate, and this may have been like 2002. And I took a trip up north. We went to Fort Wayne, and they bought my cartoons. And then I went to South Bend with my sales rep, and they picked up my cartoons. And then about a month later, they dropped my cartoons because I think they didn't know who I was or what I was drawing about. Anyway. And then but getting into your question, I saw a big shift in newspapers during the 80s and 90s. When I first started working at the Indianapolis News in 1978, newspaper was king. I mean, if you wanted to sell something, then you put an ad in the newspaper and you had a million eyes on it. Our classified ad section was two sections, and it was thick. The Sunday paper was huge. And they were making lots of money. And so when people would get upset with something that they saw in the newspaper, the attitude was the editors would listen to them. You can write a letter to the editor, would be happy to print that, but they were immovable. But as time went on, and then the internet hit, and then people had options where they would put their advertising, the revenue for the newspaper itself started to drop. Now, newspapers transitioned to online. That's fine, but they don't make the amount of money that they were making with just the printed version. And now you have circulation is a problem, because it used to be that in every neighborhood, almost everybody in the neighborhood took the newspaper. Now, a news carrier will drop off the newspaper at this house. He's got to drive 5 miles to the next house to drop off the newspaper. So delivery is a problem. Everything is and newsprint's expensive. So the bottom line is that they don't have the revenue anymore. They can't afford to lose customers. So when people complain, well, now all of a sudden that's a problem. And editorial cartoonists cause people to be uncomfortable. I mean, our job is not to make you laugh. Our job is to make you think. And we use humor as a tool to get that across. Well, now I become a danger of losing circulation. So they do. They never came to me and told me, okay, you need to moderate. You need to moderate your tone down. They never said that. They never told me what to do. Now, my editor would look at all my sketches and he would say yes on this one and no to that. And so I get it. I understand. I mean, I served at their pleasure. But nowadays, I think a lot of newspapers, even liberal newspapers, they just want to stay away from the controversy. And which is not good for editorial cartoonists, because we're not doing our best work if we're not kind of pushing the envelope a little bit, right? It's been liberating for me to not have that. Now, newspapers still buy my cartoons, but they buy all of my cartoons and they run the ones they want, and they don't run the ones they don't want, right? But they still pay me, which is good.
Right.
So I guess that's a long answer, but I think that it's just the culture the way it is now. The other thing is the cancel culture is just, I mean, it's affected comedy. A lot of comedians say that they won't do college campuses anymore because nobody there has a sense of humor. And humor pokes fun at people and things and life experience. And I mean, I think one of the oldest jokes is, if you want to make God laugh, tell him what you're going to do next.
Yeah.
So I was poking fun at me,
Mouthwash,
right?
that's what.
I told this story. Go ahead.
I was going to say, just to echo what you're saying, I mean, I used to deliver papers for the Orange County Register out in California.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember the days when it was a quarter a paper. Of course, some people take more than others. I think I signed up for like $2 for like 6 months or something, something ridiculous. I mean, obviously they're just trying to get viewers, but yeah, when you're talking about the money, I get that.
Yeah. I was just going to say that, I was just going to say real quick, Ed, as far as humor is concerned, you have to have skin to do this job I do. Anybody in politics has to have a thick skin, because they're going to get attacked, and you got to know how to take it. And I don't take myself very seriously. So people will say terrible things to me, and I just kind of laugh it off. I mean, what are you going to do? Because one thing, I don't know them. So it doesn't, if I don't know you, it doesn't affect me what you think. You hate me or not. But I'll give you, for instance, I got an email from a guy in Chicago years ago, and he said, he tried to shame me. He says, obviously you don't know what you're doing. It's just embarrassing to look at your cartoon today was awful. So I wrote him back and I said, obviously you're not paying close attention, because I've drawn a lot worse than this. And then he laughed. He wrote me back and he says, okay, that's funny.
We use that for our show. But I want to get Micah in here on this about, actually what conservatism is, because I'm not sure that the standard definitions of liberalism and conservatism is not so foggy anymore. That who knows what it is. I mean, I'm going to call myself out here. I pushed neither on my survey. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, so Micah, go ahead. Give us your best take on what you think conservatism is, and then Gary can fill in those blanks, or you could form it in a question. Either way.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, conservatism is the understanding that all people have an inherent value that is put on them first and foremost by the creator. So you got to believe in a creator. I believe if you're a conservative, you're going to understand that there is a higher power. There's something that created all of this, and there's that human life has value. And then the other big important piece of conservatism is that every human being has a right to live their life how they choose to live their life in the context that they want to live it in. And I think that plays out in a lot of ways. That plays out in limited government. That plays out in, we don't turn to government as conservatives to look for government to save us. Government is not our savior. We, the people, we can save ourselves. Or if you're a conservative that understands that there's a God in heaven, you look to the God of heaven to save you. You turn to him as your savior. And so, but where you don't turn is you don't turn to government, because we know government does very few things well. And certainly they don't know best for us as we try to run our lives. So for me, conservatism is just limited government, is a limited government mindset. And that's how I tend to phrase it, and very quickly. I mean, we could dive into it and spend hours and talking about conservatism in depth, but I would say those are the two key pieces for me when I'm thinking about conservatism. I'd love to hear, Gary, what your take is on it.
Well, I think you covered it pretty well right there. And, I think about what Reagan said, the 9 most feared words ever spoken were, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." That's a problem. I like you, Mike, I don't think the government does many things well. And the problem that I've seen in my lifetime is that the more people ask the government to do, the less freedom that we have, because we expect them to do it for us. I mean, we're the pioneers that founded this country, who didn't look for anybody to help them. They just forged out on their own, and went and discovered a plat of land and then worked it and farmed it and didn't expect anybody to take care of them. We don't seem to have that kind of opinion anymore. What we want to do is we want government to give us stuff and make our lives more easy. So there's a lot of problems. And the other thing is the laws. We judge congressmen on how many laws they author. Well, we got so many laws now that nobody even knows what they are anymore. They're just written in books and stacked somewhere. And the problem with the law is the law doesn't make you better. The law just will illustrate when you fail. I mean, just like the law and faith that is described in Romans chapter 4 and 5, nobody can keep the law. We all fail it. And so if you pass another law, it just makes us all lawbreakers. I mean, that's the problem. So my thinking is that a smaller government is better. I want government's role is to allow us as free people to forge our own. Now, people always come back to me and say, "Oh, well, do you drive on the roads?" Well, yeah, I drive on the roads. Exactly. So there is a limited, government is necessary, but limited government. And then, Micah, what you said about God is absolutely what I think. And when you look at what the founding fathers said, so many of them said that religion and morality were indispensable supports, is what George Washington said. And that in vain would that man claim tribute to patriotism who would try to subvert these great pillars of human happiness, and that you couldn't have morality without religion, because Hitler had a moral value, but what was it based on? It wasn't based on biblical principles. And so I think that, like Micah, I believe that there is a creator that created us. He put us here on his planet, that we are given a certain amount of time, and we're supposed to manage his creation while we're here. And I think that we're supposed to ultimately find our creator, and that's what he wants us to find him. But he also gives us freedom to live your life the way you want to live. And I wouldn't want people telling me how to live. Like Micah said, that if you choose to live a certain way, that's fine, as long as it's not infringing on other people. And I know that people will say, well, it's my body, my choice. The problem with that is that it's not your DNA that you, like when it's usually used in a case of abortion, it's not your DNA that you're wanting to get rid of. So there's another human being inside your body that you're trying to kill, and that's where that becomes a problem. So I think the government has to step in certain areas where it has to. And I think that whether the Supreme Court will change that in this next term or not, I would hope that it would. And send it back to the states and let the states make the decision of what the people want to do. I mean, we're supposed to have a representative government, then let's represent, instead of having the Supreme Court dictate to everybody what is right in their eyes.
Yep.
I'll be honest with you guys. I'm concerned about America right now because of what I've seen in the last 40 years.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are concerned. So obviously you did mention smaller government in there. So the obvious segue would be to Lucy. So that's why I'm going to Ed. I'm going to go to Ed, and we're going to sandwich Ed with the liberal, the lefty side view of this. So he's like, oh wait, Lucy was going to go. I was certain of it. So Ed, let's dig in from the left a little bit here. And Gary and Micah just had several comments there. Did anything stick out in your mind that you might think, I don't know about that?
So one of the part, and we've talked about this before, is I was a conservative for a lot longer than I've been a liberal. I was a registered Republican for years. One of the my major issues was I kept seeing the Republican Party preach conservatism, but then when it came to expanding the government, it was complaining about the left. But then the right would do the exact same thing. I mean, under George Bush, the federal government exploded, and so
I know.
To me, there's that disconnect there where I can agree with you on certain parts in conservatism. There's other parts that you don't necessarily agree on, but just almost going back to the peeps on the street deal. I mean, to me, there's that disconnect between conservatism and the Republican Party once they get in office. And so, could you address that some?
Well, you're talking to the right group here on that one between Gary and Micah and me. And Lucy too. So thanks, Ed.
Ed, I would agree with you that that conservatism has not been as conservative as I have liked it to be. And it has grown government. I mean, it certainly has. I mean, I heard a long time ago somebody said that that people will run on a platform of I'm going to go to the swamp and I'm going to clean it up. But then when they get there, they think it's a hot tub and they want to stay, and they stay for 50 years, and that's a big problem. Well, I'd say one big problem that our founding fathers made was they should have made term limits on Congress, because they're never going to pass it. So I would agree with you, Ed. I have some problems in that area as well, but I can't go left because a lot of where Democrats are today are just, I can't biblically line up with them. I'm traditional marriage, and I'm that way because that's what the Bible says. I'm pro-life because that's what the Bible says, and I can take you to chapter and verse. And so there's some areas of where the Democrats want to go. I just can't go with them. Now, I don't know what you think about our current president here, President Biden, wanting to spend $6 trillion in his budget. He will spend more money in his first year than the first 43 presidents spent. 42 presidents, because George W. Bush was 43. So 42 presidents. It took us 42 presidents to get to $5 trillion in debt. And Biden wants to spend $6 trillion in his first year. I'm like, what has gone on? And here's the other thing, guys, and I know everybody on this panel knows it, but I just want to state it for whoever's watching. We have no clue how much $1 trillion is. And I saw this illustration a long time ago, and I use it when I go out and speak, is that if you were to spend $1 million every day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, every day you're spending $1 million. Since the time that Jesus was born until now, you will not have spent $1 trillion yet. You would spend somewhere around $720 billion. You'd have a long time to go to get $1 trillion. And we're $28+ trillion in debt. We're going to be over 30 before we know it. This is not sustainable. This is insane. And I've got grandkids, and I'll be dead, but they're going to have a mess on their hands trying to clean this thing up. And I don't know what the solution is. It's beyond me. I'm a cartoonist. I'm not a politician, and I'm not a mathematician. But to me, this is a huge problem for the future of America.
The solution is to have a bunch of really smart grandkids that can figure it out, is what I'm thinking.
The solution is to make sure that our grandchildren are well enough armed that we can end the Fed and repudiate the debt.
Yeah, here we go. We got the bases loaded. Yeah. We got the bases loaded for Lucy to come up here. So Lucy, go ahead and swing away.
Well, the first thing I've got to ask is, for conservatism, is a belief in God necessary? Because that, to me, leads to theocracy. And when I ask myself, are Republicans conservative? I look at the state of Indiana, native-grown Hoosier, lived here for 50 years now. 88% of our elected officials in Indiana fly the Republican banner, but we lose freedom every day in Indiana. Doesn't help that we have a milquetoast Eli Lilly sucking, governor in office. But I'm about as conservative as they come. I mean, I'm pro-life. I have 10 children that I've given birth to, married for 30 years to the same guy, my sweetheart from IUPUI. But I'm also an anarcho-capitalist, and very proudly so, because I see a danger in a state religion. I reject the idea that anyone has authority over me other than myself and my creator, because I do believe in God. But I don't believe that any man, no matter how well he quotes some words that were written on a piece of paper, not even if it's quintuple the amount of sales of any other published work in the history of the world, I reject that anyone has that authority over me. The only person with authority over me is me. But I agree with you. I just want to make sure, I agree with you on the whole DNA. I mean, when you've got a baby, that's not you. So as a very pro-life, and this is something that's fractionated the Libertarian Party as well, as somebody who's pro-life, I believe that the only way that you can protect society is to protect the smallest, most at-risk, helpless individuals, the disabled, those who are old, who are, at danger during the Obama administration of being, killed, to right Social Security. So we have to protect the unborn. So that's just me. But anyway, I want government so small that it can't interfere with my life, that I can't find it. I don't need government, to produce roads for me. People, I lived in an HOA. They didn't create the roads in that HOA. The founding fathers did roads by lottery. And I'm going to make some listeners mad here. I hesitate sometimes to invoke the founding fathers, because a lot of people don't realize that a lot of our founding fathers were Freemasons, and they were making secret blood oaths. We are in a spiritual battle. We are literally in a battle between good and evil. And unfortunately, some of the people that we see as our civic leaders, going back to the founding fathers, were making secret blood oaths to themselves and to each other, and not to us. So again, I'm just looking for freedom from religion. I'm not looking to replace one form of control, the church, with another form of control in the government. But as far as your last remark, and then I'm going to end it here, the reason that Biden can do the inexplicable spending amount of $6 trillion is because there was no one putting the brakes on that a generation ago and the generation before that. Once the Federal Reserve came in, we lost control of the money, and it's all downhill from here. $500 carrots are coming, just like Venezuela.
And when Lucy says she's going to put an end to it, that plastic up in the background, that's real. That's real right there.
It really is.
So we're going to roll around to our final questions here. Micah, I'm going to have you weigh in on just whatever you feel is on your mind, and just jump right in there.
Yeah, Gary, I'm super impressed with you. I think you've got incredible amounts of talent, and God has used you in a powerful way. And I'm curious to know, do you see a time coming where cartoonists are going to be out of business? I was just thinking, as I was listening to you earlier, are you secure in your job? Like, do you feel like you got good job security? Or are you kind of like, man, I don't know, Lord, where you're taking me, and all this is a little bit shifty ground kind of right now. And I'm just curious kind of what's going on in your heart, and what you see for someone in your line of work. If there's somebody listening kind of that does similar type things, like, what advice would you give them now, stepping into the culture and the climate that we're in?
Well, as a Christian, I would say that the Bible tells me that God is my provision. Now, for a long time, He provided 2 different newspapers as my provision. But since 2019, I've been on my own. So I'm literally just trusting in the Lord. And the first year that I was gone was amazing. The opportunities that came my way, and then last year with the shutdown, it made it more difficult. So it's being a freelancer now is it's challenging, but at the same time, I think God's in control, and so I'm really just relying on faith and just trusting in what He's going to do. Now, I would say this, that He's given me the ability, and I think that, and I've said this a few times, I was in journalism for 40 years, almost like Moses was on the backside of a desert for 40 years before God called him to lead out the people from Egypt, lead out the Jews. But I think that I've been in journalism for all those years to prepare me for what I'm doing now. And what I'm saying by that is this newsletter that I do, and I write as well as draw, and I write about things, about current events from a biblical perspective. I don't think anyone else is really doing that. When I was my last year at the Indianapolis Star, I was asked to write a conservative column, and so I did. And I would quote scripture often, sometimes more than one in a column, and they would print it. And a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people liked it. And so I've continued doing that. I think that God had me do that for a reason, and it's for this season that I'm doing it now. And I think this is really the important work that I'm doing now. I want to continue to grow my audience, and so I'm asking people to sign up for my newsletter, even if you just take the free one, but to sign up for it so you can see what I'm saying. I think that we are living in perilous times, not just for America, but for the world. I think that biblically I can see that we may be seeing Scripture fulfilled in our generation. A lot of people say, that can happen 1,000 years from now. Yeah, but it could. But it could happen in our generation. People don't. And I'll tell you, here's a couple of reasons why I'm a Christian and why I believe that we may be living in the last days. Israel was was scattered around the world. The Jewish people were scattered around the world since 70 AD till 1948. There's a verse in the Old Testament that says, "Can a nation be born in a day, in an hour?" And yet that's exactly what happened in 1948, May 14th. In an hour, United Nations signs a document, Harry Truman signs his name, and they become a nation again. Now that is a fulfillment of Scripture, and I believe that, when it says that, this generation shall not pass away, then all these things will be fulfilled. And it's giving a parable of the fig tree. And I think a lot of people have identified Israel as being that fig tree. That's the case. We could be seeing the return of Jesus. Now, that's what the Bible says. Now, a lot of people will say that and it makes them uncomfortable. But Lucy, what you said is we're in a spiritual battle. It's funny you mentioned that because in 2014, my sons and I made a movie with some friends from our church called The War Within. And if you go to thewarwithinmovie.com, you'll find it won 7 film festival awards. I'm on the board of directors of House of Grace Films, which the executive director is my son, Brett. And he's right now down in Arkansas filming a movie where he's a lead actor. So we're involved in the movie making industry. Let me quickly say this. Our slogan for our motto, I guess, for our House of Grace Films is we're using the most powerful medium of our time to communicate the most powerful message ever told. And that is what the goal of that is, of the movie part of it. So I'm kind of doing my own version of that in my newsletter. I'm trying to just tell people, look, here's the headlines and here's what the Bible says. And I'm connecting the two. And I'll tell you what, I'm doing a series like I mentioned to you earlier, John, that doing the series on brainwashing America. And I came across recently some information. You can look him up on YouTube, a guy named Yuri Bezmenov, Bezmenov. Look him up because he was a defector from the Soviet Union in 1970, but in the early 80s, he was doing a lot of interviews talking about, he worked in the KGB, and he talked about ideological subversion and what they were trying to do in America. I tell you what, from what he described, they have been successful. And that's why we see such chaos going on, because they're trying to create a crisis in order for the government to come in and take control and to normalize things. But it's incredible. When I was looking at this guy, I mean, he was basically telling the future. But he said that was their goal. Now, he died in 1992 or 3, so he's been long gone. But he was saying these things, and now you look at it now and you go, wait a minute, wow, he really called it.
Yeah, George Orwell's gone too. So, exactly. A lot of even Paul Harvey in 1965 or whatever he talked about.
Right,
I mean,
right.
It's invisible in plain sight, so to speak. So, Lucy, yeah. I don't know if that was your question or not, but I'm going to let Ed bat the cleanup this time for the last question. So, Lucy, go ahead. We'll let you
Cool.
do another one.
Well, Gary, I appreciate your comments because it is indeed a spiritual battle, and until people realize that, they miss the irony in some of the things that happen. Like you mentioned, Yuri. I think about, here we are in the end times. I'm personally worried about, what is the mark of the beast? If you're not familiar with luciferase already, have you heard of luciferase?
No.
Luciferase is the bioluminescent marker that they're putting in a lot of the vaccines, such as the COVID vaccine. So you will literally receive a mark when you are vaccinated with these substances. Yeah, and it's called luciferase, which is funny because my name is Lucy, right? The light bearer. So that always makes me laugh. I have not yet found a rabbit hole yet that I didn't jump in and go explore. But you're so right about the movie making industry. We have to train our children in a different way because children learn by imitation. They learn by example. They're seeing coffee in every movie, product placement in every movie. Marketing is driving that product placement. We have neurolinguistic programming and subliminal messages. And it's about time that somebody modeled morality instead. So thank you for that work.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Ed, go ahead and wind it up here, and then we're going to go to the conspiracy theory. And Lucy, if that means lights, when you see her conspiracy tinfoil hat, you'll say Lucy in the sky with diamonds because it is bright. Hopefully, it's as bright tonight as it usually is.
We'll see.
So go ahead, Ed. Let's wind it up, and then Gary is going to stick around for the conspiracy theory. So we'll all be back for that. So go ahead, Ed.
Gary, I'd just like to say I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm going to leave it on this. I'm going to ask you, for those people who were undecided in the middle or even said they were to the left, make the pitch to the left for conservatism, the sales pitch to bring them over onto your side. So,
wow. That's a
come on, Luke. Use the force, Luke. Use the force.
Oh, man. Wow, way to put me on the spot, Ed. And I appreciate your comments tonight and question. So my pitch would be this. Here's my pitch. What do you own today what do you own that you will not lose when you die? What do you have that when you die, you won't lose?
Spirit. Oh, am I supposed to answer?
No. So here's the thing. This is what the Apostle Paul said. For me to live is Christ and to die is gain. Everything else that you own, my house, my car, my relationships with my family, you lose all of that when you die because you're not going to be here. The only thing that you will keep is a relationship with Christ. So I would ask people that would be my first question to you. What are you living for? Because when you figure out what you're living for, then that determines a lot of what you believe about the world. And we're talking about a worldview here. My worldview is a biblical worldview. I believe there is God. He created everything. I've told people I don't have enough faith to be an atheist because an atheist has an explanation that there was nothing and then there was a big bang and then you get order out of disorder and then you have to have zillions of miracles that have to happen for this to all be in place. That to me, that's just too unbelievable. I believe in one miracle. God always existed. I can't explain that. I'll be honest with you. But then he created everything. That's the only thing that makes sense to me because I see design in everything. The human body, the eye, the brain and how it works, and the chemical reactions, a little bit of a chemical change in your body, and it makes you feel terrible. I just had a little bout like a week or so ago for just like a day, and then I'm back and I was fine. And it's interesting that, but I think that we have had a generation that hasn't asked these questions of people, so they have gone through life basically living a dog's life. They get up and they eat, and they go to sleep, and then they play, and the next day they do the same thing, and they don't think about the future. But the fact is, we're all going to die, and I believe that God put eternity in our hearts, that we are going to live on in one of two places. And the question for everybody is, where are you going to be? And this is what Jesus said: "I'm the way, the truth, and life. No man comes to the Father except through me." Now, you either believe him or do you have some other explanation that's more plausible? But as I read the Bible, and the Bible says that by faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. The more I read the Bible, the more I'm convinced that this is not a book that's just written by men, that this was divinely guided. So when I say that I'm conservative because of that, because of my faith, that's what I'm talking about. Now, I have conservative friends who are cartoonists who are not Christians. And I've asked them, how did you come to your conservatism? And they would tell me different things. One guy just jokingly says, because I've got a brain. I can think. And to him, that made sense. But for me, it's more of a spiritual, and we live in a generation that is very unspiritual. We don't think in these terms. But when we get to the conspiracy theories, maybe I'll share something that maybe puzzling to everybody, but I'll share it. I don't know if I share. I don't know if I explain. I don't know if that was a winning argument or not, Ed. But I would say this: it's not my job to convince people. My job is just to be the witness. That's all. The prosecuting attorney is the Holy Spirit, not me.
Hey, I used to tell comedians, you do you, and let the crowd take it for better or worse. So yeah.
Well, that's very good. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. We're going to go to the conspiracy theory, but first, I want to put out that invitation for any liberals, any lefts. I know Ed's working on a couple guests for next week, and we'll see if we can get some dialogue started there, because we've had a little trouble with getting the left side to stick around. Honestly, to get anybody to stick around on this show. So it's been, but it's been fun with the guests that we've had, and I do appreciate your time, Gary, and guest host Micah. It's awesome to have both of you on the show. I mean, I'm a big admirer. And I like how you are able to explain your positions and stand behind your positions and make sense of them. And you're open to others' ideas. So we're going to go ahead and roll into the conspiracy theory here. Let's see. I'll put the banner up. And then so get your tinfoil hats on while I play this little clip.
Hey, y'all. It's time for the conspiracy theory. So you better get your tinfoil hat out and let's see what's going on this week.
Okay, hold on. We got to get everybody in the same thing here. Okay. Lucy's over there. Listen, I'm supposed to be over there. Come on. Let's go. Let's get everybody in the right spots here.
I don't have a tinfoil hat, but my hair's the same color.
Yeah, we couldn't tell, Gary.
I'm always wearing a tinfoil hat.
Oh, look, we got Muhammad Ed tonight, it looks like.
Yes.
And Lucy, you don't have your hat usually blinds us. So, no, what's more important than having a tinfoil hat is actually having a conspiracy theory. So, we usually let the guest go first. So, we'll start with you, Gary, and Mike is second because he's the newest guy. And then we'll go with, I don't know if Ed or Lucy, we'll just see how that goes. So, go ahead, Gary, with your conspiracy theory.
Okay. So here it goes. A lot of talk here recently about UFOs sightings, right? Okay. So my conspiracy theory is that they're actually demonic apparitions. They're not really from outer space. They're not other beings, but I think that they're demonic, and I believe that. I'll leave it there. I have no evidence to support that view. That's just a view I have.
And that makes it even better. That's these are, as the little thing there on the bottom says, hey, they're for entertainment purposes only. If you take that to the bank, you will get nothing, maybe not even cryptocurrency for that. So, all right, Michael, what do you got for us? New guy on the block.
All right. Well, I don't have my tinfoil hat, so I was looking around to find something. I literally have nothing. I'm looking in my office, and so just to picture a huge tinfoil hat on me right now. I think my conspiracy theory is a winner. I'm just gotta say two words. Bill Gates. That's it.
That's all you need to say, man.
Listen, all the problems that we're having in the world right now, I think you can trace them back to Bill Gates I think you trace him back to Bill Gates, Epstein Island. I mean, his wife just left him, for crying out loud. I think she realized that he's a giant conspiracy theory, and it may not be much of a conspiracy. We might find out it's a lot less of a conspiracy someday than what we thought it was.
I knew there was something with those Microsoft Winders. Man, I always had trouble with them things. So I couldn't ever get them open. The thing was stuck half the time. So anyway, Lucy, go ahead. Lucy and this guy with diamonds. What's your conspiracy fact? I have to warn you, she has a conspiracy fact, sort of like the first two we heard already.
Yeah, the one that I've got right now is something I've been, playing around with for a couple of weeks. I have no basis in reality for that. But before I say mine, I want to say Micah is absolutely right. And so is Gary. In fact, those who are in the Christian community can look up Project Bluebeam, and you'll see that everything that Gary said is absolutely true. So if you don't know what Project Bluebeam is yet, look that up. Okay, so my theory is, based partially on fact, that the COVID vaccine is creating pathogenic priming, so that when the next variant is released, yes, I said released, during flu season, that a whole bunch of people are sadly going to die. You're going to see people dropping like flies. Of course, it will be blamed on the unvaccinated like myself. But the end goal is where the curveball comes in. It's for real estate investors who want to buy up properties at a discount. So as all these people are dying, there's going to be a glut of real estate on the market, and people are going to be able to pick it up for a song and make more money with rentals. But then who's going to rent those properties? Nature abhors a vacuum, so we're going to import Chinese immigrants to live in those houses. And then we're going to call it the Wuhan immigration.
The internet just shut down.
That's amazing. That is one of the best things I've ever heard. I can't say I disagree with any of it.
Well, it is conspiracy fact. I mean, come on. All right, Ed, I hate to put you on,
bring it home, Ed.
On this one, but Ed is usually conspiracy theory challenged because he's not conservative. Do you know that most conservatives are really prone to conspiracy theories? So that's why Ed has trouble. I mean, it's not his fault.
No. And all I got to say is, being in the real estate business, I'm all for you, Lucy.
All right, man. You probably started the whole thing. I've just been listening in with QAnon to your calls.
I was part of it. I am going to say, because we keep talking about the fact Ed's not as left as we thought he was when he joined, that I got into a car accident 2 weeks ago on the way to the show, and I missed the episode on abortion. And I have a conspiracy that it was actually one of our viewers. I haven't confirmed this. I don't know who the lady is that hit me, but they didn't want me on the show. So that's my conspiracy.
All right. Well, I would say we're saving the best for last, but I don't think mine are. Oh, Gary's got
I just have one more. I don't really think that Micah Beckwith actually exists. I think it's Seth MacFarlane. Am I right or am I right here?
I'm growing out some facial hair, so because literally every time I go and fill in on WIBC for the Mock and Rob show, that's what Mock always says. It's like, you're Seth MacFarlane, you're not really Mike. And so I finally grew a beard, and still I can't get rid of it. You know what? I feel bad. I feel bad for Seth, because I hear that a lot of people see him out in California and say, "Hey, are you Micah Beckwith?"
See, that's it. Come on, Micah, do some voices for us. I want to hear some voices.
I can't. No, I cannot do them. I will not do them justice. So
I'm doing Homer. All right, yeah, that's a good one, Gary. I like how you nick the new guy up a little bit there. That was good. Well, Gary, I have a conspiracy here, and I'm actually going to not use your cartoon. I'm going to come in and be a traitor and use somebody else's cartoon. I'm going to put this overlay up here of another cartoon. Let's see. There you go. And this is pretty much how conspiracy theorists are born. This is how they're born, and let me get that banner off of there so you can see the name of that cartoonist, because I don't want you to get blamed for this, Gary. Yeah. But my conspiracy on this is something that's going to make some people's head explode, because there's a lot of folks that believe in QAnon, and I hate to break it to folks, but QAnon is actually Bill Clinton, and I'm just saying. You've never seen QAnon and Bill Clinton in the same spot. And, so that makes a lot more. He's still got security clearance. He would know what's going on. So, that's what's going on. And it's probably not real accurate, because one of my antennas is really not cooperating with this. So it's our high budget props we have on this show that really come through. So, well, I'll tell you what, this has just been a fun time, and an hour goes by quick when you're in good company. And we hope, God bless America.
You can get this
that little patriotism in there. That's not a sin, liberal, conservative, or neither.
Hey,
So
John, let him stump. John,
I was just
shut
gonna
up
say,
and let Gary stump for his merch.
You can get these shirts at the GaryVarvel.com store page.
It's like Alice's Restaurant. You can get what you need at Gary's webpage. So that's the best you get from me for singing. So, and that's probably all you need. All right, everybody. Well, we do appreciate you tuning in, and it's good to see you back, Ed, from your car crash and all that other stuff. And Micah, glad you can step in at the last minute. And, we're just going to keep cranking on. Hopefully we'll get some liberals to bite. If we don't, Lucy is going to be, getting us some libertarians on, and we'll see if we can get some high profile libertarians on here. But hey, we're going to hold out for some liberals. I've been pushing some buttons on Facebook to get, some of them out of the woodwork to come out and see what they can do here. And hey, I picked neither conservative or liberal, so I'm being neutral here. I'm doing my best. So with that being said, hey, we're going to catch you guys next week. And hey, peace out.
Thanks.